Good to see everybody. Alright, so I don't know how many of you a nice Raspberry Pi onto their network so they can have a back door. Has anyone seen Mr. Robot? Remember that scene? Yeah. So yeah. But really, what's it about? It's about ropes. It's about, hey, what is on your network, right? How fast can you detect what is on your network, whether it's supposed to be there, and if or not that this thing is doing something that it shouldn't. And this is where my talk is really going for. It's like, hey, how are you doing on that, right? The red team, you've got red teamers in here, right? So we're doing pen tests. It's a great way to get on the network, right? Where if that's included in scope, where you can socially engineer your way in, drop a device, maybe a pineapple. Darknet Diaries, if anyone's listening to that podcast, it's becoming one of my favorite podcasts. One of the recent episodes talked about a pen tester who was hired to start from the inside and brought his own device. But this is challenging. The first, the CIS controls, the first control has always been that you need an inventory of your authorized and unauthorized devices, right? So, know what's on your network. If you don't know what's on your network, it's almost impossible to defend it, to protect it. But that's hard. You got a network of, all over the world, all over the nation, hundreds of thousands of devices. Your network's not changing daily. It's changing hourly or minute by minute. Man, that's a challenge that is, that those of us out of smaller networks, it's a little easier. It's definitely not on the scale that some of you are faced with devices all over and, decentralized control of your network. So, you're trying to protect the castle, right? You're trying to protect, you got this nice border that you're crunching on the outside. Hopefully it's segmented. I mean, that's where we're going. We're trying to segment our network. But yet, when you have a device, a rogue device on the network, you're letting these things pass your defenses right in your front door, right? They're coming right in, and you may have them controlled to a room or a section, but they're still there. And so they have all these risks that you're now just really right inside of your perimeter. So whatever it is, they're past your first line of defense. So now we got to figure out what these devices are. And these devices break down into four really categories, at least the way I view it. So you have your authorized devices. These are devices you know about that you probably built, right? Or someone else has built according to your specs. They've maybe gone through change management, all right? So you know what these devices are. These are authorized, permitted devices on your network. These are things you definitely should know about. But then you have your other devices that are known, but maybe they're out of date. So they probably at some point were authorized, okay? But they've fallen behind, right? Maybe they're a couple reps behind on their AV. Maybe they're missing a couple of your agents. We all have agents, probably more agents than we want on our devices. But maybe these devices are missing agents, okay? Maybe their config's out of date or never got properly applied. So these are known, but they're outdated devices. And then you have devices that are unauthorized. You still know what they are. It's Jill's laptop. Or it's, Bob's iPad. Or maybe it's that vendor that showed up to do a demo. He's like, I just need to download some stuff from my company. And so he plugs in. So you know what these devices are, but they're not permitted. You didn't give them permission to get on your network. And then finally you have your your unknown devices. Devices that you have no idea what they are. They just show up as an IP and maybe an OS or whatever. And you're like, what the heck is that? So, how do we find these devices? I'm just going to talk through several methods, not really advocating one or the other, but these are different ways that you can use or you maybe have used or are using to find devices, right? So you can start with the simple. Ping sweeps, which is like angry IP scanner or net or Nmap, right? Where SolarWinds has a basic tool. Basic tools to just scan the network, hit up the IPs, and get back some kind of result of what's alive, what's not alive, maybe a little more information. But it's a manual process, right? Because at the end of the day, you're running it manually, and then you're doing a diff of your current results against previous results, and deciding as what's new and what's not new. And so it's manual, but it's simple, it's free, it's cheap. You know, that's not bad. Then you have, on the other end, you have tools. Maybe Manage Engine. SolarWinds actually has a tool. I'm gonna get the company name wrong. I want to say Red Steel, but that's I don't think that has the company right. Red, yeah. So let's see if I wrote it down. Ipam Tools, IP address management tools, McAfee EPO. I don't know if it's Red Sea. I'm gonna have to double check that. I'm drawing a major blank on this. I apologize. But these tools claim to do or say, hey, we do rogue detection. And they do it at various levels, right? Some of them just say, hey, you have a new IP. There's a new IP, I don't know what it is, I don't have an agent on it, it must be rogue. Others will provide you a lot of information, like, hey, it's this IP, this machine showed up, it's this OS, it's on this switch port. You know, so it's a range of things. Now, these are great, right? Because they do this for you, but they're expensive. There are various levels of expense, and there are various levels of complexity that you are required to stand up. And I'm sorry, guys, I forgot to give you a warning I was starting. So there are various levels of complexity, both to stand up, to manage, and to continue on. You got a patch and everything else, but they may be what your organization needs to manage and find and detect rogues. And I want to say NAC, Network Access Control Tools, as well, can fall into this category because by their very nature, they control unauthorized devices connected to your network. And then finally, you have custom tools. These are tools that you've rolled your own. Maybe you take your SIM and use all the logs coming into your SIM to kind of filter out a unique IP list, and then you roll some kind of script that dumps that list every X amount of time in between, and figure out some diffs and some other information, and roll your own connection to the router or whatever. So you roll your own. It's custom built for your environment, custom built for the tools that you have, right? And these are nice because, as I already said, they're custom, so they fit your environment perfectly. But they're challenging because you have to build it yourself, and then you have to maintain it, and you better hope that the developer has good notes so that when he leaves, someone else can pick up that kind of pick up the maintenance of that tool to adjust to changes in your environment. But at the end of the day, when these tools run, you're sitting there waiting for the results. And you're trying to say, all right, what am I going to get back? What are these tools going to give me? And what you don't want is that what a lot of tools do is it just gives you an IP address. Hey, this IP is new. It's probably rogue. But maybe it'll give you an operating system, and maybe it'll give you some open ports. But how many of you are going to be able to take this information and with high fidelity be able to take deliberate and decisive action on that? Now, some of your environments may be able to say, you have decided that your risk framework or your risk analysis said, I don't care what it is, if it's a new IP, we block it. And that's great because that's you have made that decision in your environment. But don't block my light. Sorry. So, but others of you, and this is where some of what drove this presentation for me, need more than that. We're not just blocking because it's an unknown IP. We need a little more information about that IP and what it represents. So, what does that mean? What if you actually had things like not only the IP, but you had like operating system, the host name, the CAMS port that thing was plugged into, right? It was already part of a domain. Did the did your vulnerability scan it? What are the results of that vulnerability scan? And what if you included in your results a link to the SIM with that IP address so that an analyst, when he receives that rogue alert, can click on it and get all the events that that SIM has about what that IP did. Man, is that empowering your analyst? Is that giving your analyst the kind of information that they can make quick, high-fidelity decisions on what they should do with that alert? Holy cow, your analyst is like, awesome, right? And you have provided that to them. So now when that rogue shows up, and that alert comes along, you can decide, based on the information that you have, hey, should I block that IP at the switch? Maybe he's not getting anywhere. Maybe I'm going to block him at the router. He's only allowed at subnet. Or maybe that he's going to be put in his own VLAN, right? NACs do this, right? You can configure a NAC to automatically put this new device into a subnet or his own VLAN with limited access. Maybe, to continue here, maybe you're going to allow that device to have access to the general network, but block from the servers, because that's where your critical data is. So you're going to block the server. Or maybe you're going to just block it to the internet. Or maybe just give him only a path to the internet. Maybe he's allowed on the network, but he's not allowed to access anything but the internet. So this kind of information that you, having all that information allows you to make those kind of decisions very quickly, right? So you get that alert, your SOC does its analysis, makes that decision. Maybe you work with the ops team, right? But what about the help desk? What are some, a little bit of feedback, what are some reasons you might want to alert the help desk that you're taking action on a rogue?
That's what they're going to.
Pardon?
That's what they're going to hear that.
They're going to hear about it, right? Whether it's an actual real rogue, or if it's trying to social engineer its way back on the network, or it's a legitimate user who's pissed that they can't get to Facebook. So they're going to call the help desk. You got to bring your help desk into the loop of what's going on with those rogues, whether it's a call, if it's sort of an informal discussion, or some kind of ticket, so that the help desk can easily say, oh, yeah, you are blocked from the internet, this is what's going on. So making sure that you have that kind of communication among these groups, and I'm a big proponent of security and ops having great communication method. I'm not saying a relationship is always great, because we know that doesn't happen, but having good communication is important, even if that relationship is tense. And this kind of thing really helps. So what are some challenges, right, that we have with this? Well, this is great if you have a small number of rogues, but if you have a large number, man, you're just, we all have, alert fatigue is real, right? There's lots of discussion about that. So if you have a large number of rogues, this definitely becomes a challenge, no matter how good the information that you are providing with the alert. No matter how good that information is, it's challenging you to handle a large number of rogues. The other thing is, if some of those rogues are actually legit users and legit devices, can you provide a way for those devices and users to self-remediate, right? If the NACs, again, I'm going to go back to NACs a couple times, that they often have ways to say, hey, we're going to put you in this VLAN, but as soon as you patch, as soon as you reconfigure, then we'll let you back out and play with everybody. So, what are some thoughts on this? What's my way ahead? Well, one of the, I am working with a friend of mine who's written a nice rogue tool, rogue detection tool that will provide a lot of this other information. And that's nice. I'm not saying that this tool is the end-all, be-all, but the whole point of this talk is that when that when you're doing rogue analysis, you want to grab all this other information as much as you can so that you can make better decisions. And that's what we're working on this tool to do. And when it's ready, we'll put out some advertising. It's already out on GitHub, but it's one of those in-process projects. So I didn't want to put it out there and people like, oh, this doesn't work. It's like, well, yeah, I know. We're still developing it. I also want to add to this talk about detecting wireless rogues, right? Wireless APs, rogue APs, as well as rogue devices connecting to your APs. And finally, just a little bit of research about detecting Bluetooth rogues, right? How are we, what's going on with, those kind of networks? Some of these other wireless networks that we have that give us access to devices. So, in conclusion, I want to just say, hey, enhance your logs, speed up your analysis, really, that increases your ability to react, and it really increases your ability to protect your network. So, with that, my name is Craig Bowser. I go by Reswell 10 on the interwebs, and I want to invite you, if you're at all available, I'm teaching SEC555 as a mentor session, and it's going to be from July 16th to September 3rd, Tuesday nights. And this class is all about enhancing your SIM. Data analytics and security analytics with SIM. This is about exactly what I'm talking about. Enhancing your logs so that your analysts are able to make faster decisions better. You have a coffee break SIM? Time where you do a search, you go get a coffee. We'll talk about that. Talk about how to make that better, how to make it work for you so that you can have that kind of analysis and that kind of fast decision making with high fidelity alerts. So I have a blog, it's on the bottom. I work for ClearFocus and Technologies, and I am a part of Nova Hackers if you want to talk about that as well. Great group that has totally helped me grow in security. So, any questions?
So, assume worst case scenario, you've got a network, there's hundreds, thousands of devices on it, you're not going to kick them all off at once. What's your recommendation on how to get started?
So, the question is, if we have, we know our network, we have 100,000 devices, but we have a lot that we've discovered are rogue. There's just a lot of rogues we discovered. How do we prioritize what gets kicked off first? Is that a good summary? Right. So the first thing to do is figure out where what those rogues are doing. This is where having that information really helps. So when you're looking at the information about what those rogues are, you can say, oh, that's Susie's iPad, and that's the vendor box. And you can say, okay, those are kind of low priority. They'll probably go away, but I can relegate those to doing that later. The ones that are probably using all the information you gather about those things, you can say, okay, this is probably something I really want to determine is better. Is it on my server network, for instance, my server subnet? Is the traffic that I've noticed in my SIM based on the IP address or the MAC address, is it look something that is suspicious, or is it just, it's only going to Facebook type thing? And so using that other information you've gathered, now you can kind of gives you the ability to rack and stack of how quickly I need to react to each one. And so that is one of the biggest reasons I think that having that extra information gives you that ability. If you have just a bunch of IP addresses, then your only real choice is just block everything and figure it out just one by one. Does that answer your question? Anything else? Yes.
What we're talking about is that you're basically sandboxing these folks. Or some of these folks, hey, you can do this, but you're not going to use anything else. Or I'm going to let you do these two things, that sort of thing, right?
Right. Right. So the question was about, am I suggesting that these devices are sandboxed so that they're only allowed to do certain things?
This method that you're describing is that basically what?
So the method is that I'm describing is mostly about getting more information about each device so that you can make a decision about how to or whether or not to sandbox. So So you can sandbox. That's definitely a decision that, as an organization, you need to make based on your risk analysis of how you want to handle rogues. For instance, one of my organizations I was part of just blocked them at the switch. Done. I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're the CEO's laptop that he brought from home. You're blocked. That was a risk decision that the organization made. Another one said, hey, we don't know what it is. We're just going to block it at the firewall. He has free reign to our entire intranet, but we're just going to block him at the firewall because we figure it's probably an unauthorized device that is we want to permit, but just hasn't gone through the proper process. So that was what. So organizationally make that decision. Does that answer your question? Yeah. All right, great. Anyone else? It's behind the light that I can't see. Great. That's all the questions. Thanks for attending. Appreciate you coming back right after lunch. I know that was challenging. But if anything else, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.